What's up, curious youngsters? Every day, without realizing it, we consume hundreds of products. And while some are pretty obvious in how they were made, others have a very curious process behind them, although many people don't consider such a complex process. Behind your chair or the pastrami you're eating, curious people like Mr. Curiosity always seek answers to everything. Because of this and more, here are 7 things you use daily without knowing how they're made. Nopal puree. If you live in Latin America, you've probably seen or tasted nopal fruit, though it can be a bit complicated. And yes, if you weren't aware of it until now. Basically, it's a delicious food that you can find prepared in different ways, whether as drinks, meals, and more. One of the tastiest ways to eat it is as a puree, but how is it made? The nopal is harvested from August to early April, when the fruit begins to turn red. From there, it is taken to a factory that will first send those nopals through a vibrating conveyor belt that sprays them with a chemical to remove any traces of dirt and bacteria that might remain. That's why they then go through a section that dries them with hot air for about 20 seconds. So a team can later remove damaged or bad-looking fruits. From here, the nopals go through a conveyor belt that places them individually and puts a label on them according to their weight. This lets them be automatically sorted into a container for later sale. But anyway, the rest of the nopales will go on to a conveyor belt that will take them to a kind of shredder. Meanwhile, the skin is separated and can be sold as fertilizer or animal feed. As for the puree, it will go into a large tank that will filter out all its seeds, which can also be sold. Finally, the mixture passes through a finer filter and is pasteurized to kill any remaining bacteria. The puree is then moved to containers that go directly to the refrigerator for full marketing. And now, ukulele de lino. Surprisingly, linen is not only used to make clothes and other similar items, but it can also be made into perfect products. Ukuleles that have a distinctive sound in every note. And at the same time, they have a design that will definitely be a bit different from regular ukuleles or guitars that we are used to seeing from time to time. They begin by making molds with plant resin and protective coatings. The linen is placed in the ukulele mold, then polyester batting is centered on top to absorb excess resin during baking. That's how these layers of linen are baked, and the excess is trimmed off each part, including everything necessary. The soundboard machine will assemble the pieces and reinforce it with carbon fiber. Once the pieces are fully glued, a few more details, like the soundboard, are cut. On the other hand, for the fingerboard, a worker hammers thin pieces of nickel onto it and cuts and sharpens the edges. Up to this point, all that's left is to attach the fingerboard to the neck of the ukulele and position the other pieces. And finally, another worker places the brand logo inside the instrument, adds tuning pegs, and adjusts the strings from the bottom up to the head. That's how a linen ukulele is made, and even though it's not a very complicated process, it's quite interesting to watch. Though its origin is still debated, pastrami is believed to come from Romania. But aside from that, if you've ever had the chance to try this food, you must have noticed how delicious the smoked meat tastes inside rye bread. However, to make it as perfectly as possible, these steps are followed. At first, different cuts of frozen brisket are taken, which is the cow's chest. Here, a large team of workers is in charge of removing the excess fat, which will be used. Did you like the video? Give it a like and share it properly. After adding it and cooking the meat for 8 hours, the product is ready. And here, then, it could be prepared to be sent to restaurants or placed in small individual plastic bags to be sold in supermarkets. Motorized scooter. Although it's a bit unlikely that you have one right now, the truth is that scooters are quite well-known vehicles nowadays. Although there are children's versions, these motorcycles are mainly for recreation. And the thing is, these are designed to be used on practically any surface you can imagine. So you might be wondering, how are they made? And, well, the process is somewhat complex. It starts by cutting and bending several metal tubes with the help of different machines. Guides ensure the tubes are the right size and shape. In another factory, a welder assembles components on a template to position them, while other flat pieces are attached to the ends and base to serve as support. These pieces will be painted in the chosen color. 2 side reflectors will be added to the top as you see now, along with a clamp to secure the battery. The wheel rims are sent directly to another factory for this task. An aluminum disc is mounted on a computer-guided lathe to shape the rim correctly. Then, another worker takes over to add the final touches to the piece. Meanwhile, a worker installs the electric motor, which has a cable connecting to the scooter's electronic module, to then be placed inside one of the wheels and firmly secured along with a brake disc. All that's left is to assemble the parts. First attach the body to the wheels, then add the handlebar and brakes. These connect to the monitor, then to the controller. After connecting the remaining parts, the scooter is now ready to use. Laboratory reactors. Even if you didn't know about them, laboratory reactors are extremely important in our lives. And the thing is, besides being a bit complicated to manufacture, these are mainly used to develop medicines. Some are even cancer medications, highlighting their importance. But how are they made? At first, some long glass tubes are heated at least twice to make them as smooth as possible, so that later, a machine can round off their ends. A worker is in charge of giving it an edge using this tool, as well as small glass dots to better position this tube. Alternatively, a large glass tube is taken and shaped from its edge like this. Then, a larger glass container is slid over the mold, and they are joined together with fire as well. Meanwhile, another worker cuts 2 small tubes and makes a small edge on them. These tubes will be used when a hole is made in the original container so they can be placed inside in this way. Finally, work begins on the valve pieces, which will be placed at the base of the reactor. Just set the required measurements for this object to make it ready to use. And for this, a worker is in charge of gradually measuring, using containers of water, the amount that the reactor should have. Once she marks the lines, she'll transfer the measurements so it looks like this. Movable chair. If you work in an office or have one at home, you likely know how comfortable a movable chair is. Its design seems too simple, but at the same time, the process to manufacture one of these is somewhat long and more complex than it seems. Here you can see roughly how a classic office chair is made. Well, to begin with, these objects start from glass-reinforced plastic, a really strong and lightweight material that will be used to make the core of the seat. A robot inserts a steel fastener into the seat mold center, melts it, and injects it into the mold. The plastic then solidifies and you get a piece like this, so a worker will be in charge of screwing more pieces on top of it. But anyway, on the other hand, a different person places small mechanisms that will make it easier for the chair to move once it's finished. He adds an index to an aluminum support column to adjust external spring tension. He then places the small pieces on the other side of the column and tapes them in place. On the other hand, another machine places a second tube over this column and screws them in so they stay in place. Next, a compression piece is placed to hold the spring added in the following step. After placing the gas tube, the spring goes on top. A machine simply presses this and other pieces together for a stronger bond. Finally, a worker assembles all these parts onto a circular base to finish this chair. And after testing that it works properly, the movable chair is ready to be sold. The small airplane parts have to be really resistant to any kind of condition, so you can imagine how complex it must be to make them. Both the parts and the airplane must endure almost anything, so you'll see how these small parts are made. Copper is used because some airplane fasteners are coated with it, serving as a lubricant. Here, it passes through a blend of powdered soap and chemicals. Anyway, these wires go through a bolt-forming machine that heats the copper and cuts it, forming smaller pieces. Move to another machine to shape it into a screw. Some coils are longer, but they follow the same process even if made of stainless steel. After completion, they undergo various tests. Next, a drum smooths the sharp edges. Then they spend 20 minutes in a nitric acid bath to dissolve the copper without harming the stainless steel. Finally, these pieces are rinsed and changed just to go through 2 dyes that will give them that characteristic spiral, pointed shape in what seems to be a pretty quick and simple process. That's why the last step is to carry out really detailed tests where, among other things, the strength and durability of each of these small pieces are measured. Once they're ready, they can be used in airplanes,